wonder what's hot in the baking world right now? It's not even that complicated. You get store-bought croissants, cut them open, shove in some store-bought cookie dough, and that's it.
Hi everyone, I'm Gemma Stafford, professional chef, cookbook author, and creator of Bigger Bolder Baking. Welcome to Need to Know, your go-to podcast for everything baking entertainment. From the latest trends,
this is the viral scrambled pancake trend.
What? To the tips and tricks you crave.
We discovered that if you take apple peels, toss them in a little cinnamon and sugar, and bake them for about an hour in the oven, you get a really lovely treat.
Plus exclusive interviews with baking pros.
Hey, it's Liz from the Sugar Geek Show. Thanks for having me, Gemma.
We've even got the Bold Baking Hotline to answer all of your baking queries and questions.
Is a Dutch oven really necessary for baking bread, and what difference does it make?
Yes, I think we probably would agree on that, do we, Oni?
Yeah, good. So join us every Sunday for your new weekly baking ritual. It's everything you need to know.
Today's program is brought to you by Korin, a supplier of Japanese chef knives and restaurant supplies. For more information, visit Korin.com.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hey, welcome to Beer Sessions Radio on Heritage Radio Network. I'm Jimmy Carboni, I'm the host. It's Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. We're in the studio at Roberta's Bushwick, the home and the base and the love of my life for Heritage Radio Network for 15 years. We're right here in Bushwick, Brooklyn. Thank you so much, Roberta's Pizza. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Mexico and New York City. And, you know, some of you may know that I kind of co-host the Pozole and Mezcal Festival, mostly because there's so many really cool, interesting, engaged, and very experienced industry professionals here who are involved in the world of Mezcal and other authentic Mexican products and spirits. And I'm really just honored to have the crew that's here with me today. And once again, why do I do these things? Because there's so many amazing, talented people right here in New York City. So let's go around the room and you guys introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Noah Ehrenstein from the Cabinet Mezcal Bar in the East Village.
Hi, I am Mariana Pelaez. I am a Mexican food photographer, former restaurateur in Mexico, but now I live in New York since 2019.
And you take amazing photos for the Bolazol Festival.
Yes, I've been covering for like the past 3 years now.
Yes, amazing.
And I'm Julia Cuthbertson. I'm the owner of Las Chingonas Imports based here in Brooklyn, New York.
So what I love about the whole New York City food and drink industry is that I can talk to someone like Julia and say, Julia, let's do a show. We've got the studio today, and you put the show together. So, you know, what goes through your head? I mean, you're an importer. You're in Mexico. You're in New York working with accounts. So just maybe tell us about the relationships here in the room.
Yeah.
Because these are your friends as well as mine.
Well, the first thing is I'm used to being very much behind the scenes, so I get a little nervous. But it's so fun to bring people together who all share a passion for mezcal, Mexican spirits, and Mexican culture. And it's so fun because I have a history with both Noah and Mariana that dates back to 2018, 2019. And now we're all doing sort of different things, but have kind of been on a journey together. So that's really cool.
So tell us about Las Chingonas.
All right. Las Chingonas Imports focuses on Mexican spirits from less represented regions in Mexico. And so mostly non-Oaxacan agave spirits. Although I do have a wonderful Oaxacan family that I work with. It's mostly from lesser represented regions, and I now work with some non-agave spirits as well, some rums and herbal liqueurs.
So when you're doing this importing and sourcing of products, do you feel that the market's saturated? I mean, do you feel like that you have to go and find these interesting niche products? Or?
Yeah, well, the cool thing is that I haven't really had to find anything. The way my business has grown is that it's either come out of friendships or friends of friends or sort of like random connections that I've had. But most of those have been from states that are not Oaxaca. And so it's just sort of worked out that way very naturally and authentically. But yeah, part of the idea was that there are a lot of Oaxacan mezcals in the market. I had a lot of personal connections to non-Oaxacan mezcal producing states. And I thought, well, why do more of the same when I can bring in stuff that's new and exciting. And that's how it began.
We're looking forward to tasting through some of your brands today.
Ooh.
And Noah, how did you meet Julia? But then, and your backstory, man, you've been in the industry forever. I heard that Noah, the manager from the Cabinet NYC, is coming in, and then when I saw you, I was like, "This is Noah, the legend of New York City hospitality."
That's wow. Time flies. I guess I've been in the industry for a little over a decade now. First as a food writer, and then as an operator. Julie and I met through like my head waiter at my old mezcal bar called Madre in Prospect Heights in either 2017 or 2018. And first we just knew Julia as a regular who was kind of starting on a mezcal journey, and she was in quite a bit. And by the time I think we were closing Madre at the beginning of 2019, she was maybe almost fully into it. And it's been really cool to see her journey to where she is today. And it's funny too, because there's another guy who worked for me at Madre as well, or the original restaurant El Toradero, who now he owns San Bartolo Mezcal.
Yeah,
Daniel was a server and a bartender at El Toradero in 2016. I was like, wow, okay. So it feels good to have been a part of a lot of other people's journeys too. I started at the Cabinet Mezcal bar a little over a year ago, where we're in the East Village. We probably have one of the largest collections of agave spirits in the world at this point. We have over 850 bottles from 20 different states in Mexico. So it's a fun place.
850.
Yeah, it's too many. I was working with smaller lists, especially when I was in Las Vegas for a few years, and it was I was getting really excited about smaller, heavily rotated lists, and I found myself with this huge collection. And I've really spent the last year kind of working to organize it and really find the best way to present it to people.
When did you start diving into Mexico and mezcal?
I had been in the restaurant industry for a couple years and kind of stumbled into Mexican cuisine. My partner and I had found a space in Prospect Heights that we really liked, and we were going to open a sandwich shop, and the chef fell through. And I knew this really wonderful, talented chef from Puebla who had ran a restaurant at the Bronx named Denise Chavez, who had just closed her restaurant. And I was like, let me hit her up. She might be interested in opening something in Brooklyn. And, we opened in 2015. We opened with just a beer and wine license. And we were starting to taste, this was really good timing for when a lot of great mezcal and tequila was starting to come into the U.S. and New York especially. And I really clearly remember for the first time tasting Rey Campero, El Hogorio, Real Minero, and being my background was mainly whiskey and bourbon and beer. And it just blew my mind. And I was like, I don't feel the need. I kind of lost the desire to drink, barrel-aged spirits, and was like, I want to focus on mezcal. And that was 2015. And, we really got lucky to be at the right place at the right time. We built this really wonderful program at Madre. Unfortunately, we closed Madre in 2019. I ran Claro and Gowanus for about a year, and then moved to Las Vegas to open an Enrique Olivera restaurant, who's the chef at Cosme and Puyol and Atla, and then found myself back in New York last year.
Well, it's great, and I saw you at Bolazol last year.
I was at Bolazol,
and you're going to be there this year.
I think the first time we met was at your old place with Tyson Ho doing a pop-up for Arrogant Swine. That was
Jimmy's number 43. Way back.
Yeah. I remember that basement. That was with I think Chris Kuzme did the beers, and
there were some great people there.
Yeah, that was a really fun event. Yeah,
cool. And Mariana, for you, you're from Puebla, right?
Well, I was born in Mexico City and then raised in Puebla since when I was 3 years old. So I don't know if I'm from Mexico City or Puebla. People from Puebla want me to be Poblana. But my family insists that I'm from Mexico City.
And then how did you get involved with this whole world of mezcal and
well, everything started with
and restaurants?
I had a restaurant in Cholula in Puebla, which was more like a cultural center. It was it was a restaurant, a bar, and then an art gallery and a little cinema with 20 seats, independent films and student projects, but it became like pretty popular. And by then it was 2011, yes, when we opened that first project together. And my ex-partner, he was very interested in mezcal, which was not really a thing by then. It was just starting. Everything it was starting. So we went to Oaxaca and learned a lot about mezcal, and started buying from our maestro in Matatlan and bring it to Cholula, and it became popular. So that's
what was the scene like in Cholula then?
Well, Cholula, it's a small town, but it's not that small. It has a very large university population, students, and from all over the world. So it's a very magical place because it has one of the biggest pyramids in the world, and it's a very not that touristic, but also cultural place to be. So by then it was it has always been a party place, but very interesting people. And that's why I think that's why this project, the name was Casa Nueve, succeed. Right?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I know you as a photographer. How did you get into that?
Well, I studied communication in Puebla, and I've always been. I am actually more as a photographer than a restaurateur, but while I was, with the restaurants, it's almost impossible to do anything else. I couldn't even make my own photos for my restaurant. So. But then after 7 years of having the restaurant, and then after opening a second location, and after a very hard earthquake in 2017, everything went like that. So
that's a bummer.
Yeah, and I was by my own by then. My ex-partner moved, and I was carrying with both of them. So I decided to close the second location first, and then after probably 1 year, I closed the first one. So I was like, okay, now what? And I decided to just sell everything, house, car, everything, and come to New York and started to do my thing, which was photography.
How did you meet Julia?
We met by just saying hi in a restaurant in Casa Mezcal. Well, it was more like a cata, like you were, like a tasting.
Yeah, I was starting to do mezcal sort of educational classes. This was in February 2020, so it didn't last very long before the pandemic, but the GM at the time invited me. He said, I happened to be in the area, and he said, we're doing like a training tasting with a brand, if you want to stop by. And I said, sure. And Mariana was there. I just led a mezcal-focused trip to Puebla in January 2020, so I came back super excited about Puebla. And
before you were importing?
Yes, this was all before I was importing. Importing the seed had been planted, but it had not yet officially taken off. And so we just started talking and just stayed for a long, long time after the session, gabbing away about Puebla and mezcal and our histories.
Yeah, because it was just starting.
We're going into mezcal.
Yes, amazing.
You got to get everybody
at the same
time, kids. So
we, that was our initial connection, and we just kept in touch. And then, of course, pandemic hit. There was a bit of a break, and then we started hanging out once things started opening up, right? And then I knew she was looking for. I started importing, and Mariana was looking for some, to grow her business in New York. And so we kind of grew together.
Yeah, I met you, Julia, at 2021, the first Bolazol after the pandemic shut down.
In Williamsburg,
Yeah, so it's a great little community here. We're going to taste some of the mezcals too. But I want to ask, Mariana, it's funny. You never quite know who's in the room and who's going to talk, but you're the star today.
Oh, really? I
Well,
didn't
you
know
are,
that.
because I noticed you're at the event. I saw the photos you took, and you wanted to be the photographer. And I appreciate you giving us a friendly. You're part of our family now.
Thank
but
you.
When you take photographs at a festival, because I think it's interesting to people. Not anyone can just go and take pictures at a festival. It's really hard. There's different lights and things are moving. How do you do it? Because at Bolazol, like you've got some great photos. There's group photos. There's close-ups.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to know that you like them and the people like them. Yeah, it's interesting. I think my background as a restaurateur helped to understand not only salud. A ver.
Salud.
Salud.
Okay, cheers. Salud. So I think, yeah, my background as, like to be in different kitchens, to understand like the chef's minds, and not only the chef's minds, but also like the front of the house and the back of the house, and all the efforts that people do and all the risks that people make to make a restaurant happen. Is like, I really understand that effort, and that's maybe a struggle sometimes. So, but it's kind of a language that you actually understand. And yes, you're right. It's not simple to just get into a project like a restaurant or a food or beverage brand or even a food event and just start shooting, because you have to understand like the moments and read the different rooms, even the different tables. So how I do it?
Well, some people, like you see a lot of people, whether it's a photo shoot, they're really controlled. They have something, the food's made or the people pose and they have lights and other things. That's one style of photography. But to be out there in an event where it's changing all the time, the light changes, it's never the same. Different parts of the room have different lighting. Yeah. It's really challenging, but I just want to give you credit for what you do.
Thank you.
And I also, Mariana is my go-to, my only photographer really here in New York, not only for my formal bottle shots, but for all the events that I do. And she's able to shoot in really low light and like capture the mood, and that's, I think, really important.
So for you, an important part of your events is, I know you do a lot of things in accounts, restaurants, bars, retail stores. Give us a snapshot of some that you've been doing recently, some successes for you, or places that you want to give shout outs. You can give a shout out to one or two places.
Oh, okay. Well, we just had celebrated Mexican Independence Day, so we are all, I think, very, very tired, very happy
for me,
to have it.
What day is that?
That officially was Monday the 16th, but you often always start celebrating on the 15th, because the tradition of El Grito begins the night before, and that sort of kicks off celebration. So I feel like oftentimes the 15th is the real celebration, and the 16th is like a recovery day. But I had...
It's like New Year's Eve.
Yes, exactly. Lots of different events. My Abuel had a great one in Astoria, Queens. They brought together 8 different chefs, mixologists. I was serving my whole portfolio, essentially. There's just like really great vibes. They had a wonderful mariachi and some dancers. It was just like a really great celebration all around.
What did the chefs do? I love what I love about Mexico is not just regions, traditions. My friend Danny Menez got the book Made in Mexico. I think it's one of the greatest food cultures in the world.
Yeah, and the diversity of Mexico. I mean, that's partly why that's why I have the approach that I do with importing, is to really highlight the diversity of agaves and spirits all over Mexico, and highlight regions that are often overlooked. And so, and chefs, of course, come from, in New York, there's often a Poblano a representation, but they come from all 32 states in Mexico, and it's exciting to see when they can highlight regional cuisine that's lesser known as well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
No, Mexican food. Real Mexican food, different regions.
The best. I mean, like Julia was saying, New York is mainly represented by Poblano cuisine, and so I think especially New York sometimes gets the There's sometimes a stigma for New York compared to like some other, like LA or somebody else like that. But like, there's some amazing Mexican cuisine here, and I think it can be very underrated at times too.
It's kind of even what I learned from Bolazol was meeting some of the great Mexican chefs in New York City, Luis Arce Moda from La Contenta, Julian Medina. I mean, you've got so many great chefs, Ivan Garcia. I mean, I don't want to not say anyone's name, Chef Cosme. Tell us who your other favorite Mexican chefs are in New York City, because there's so many great ones. And there's other chefs that you're just learning about.
Yeah. Well, I have to give a shout out to Sobre Masa, which is literally like 200 feet away from where we're sitting. And I think we're all going to head there afterwards. Zach and Diana are from Oaxaca, and they've really created something very special. Their masa is some of the best you're going to try in the city, and just like wonderful people doing really great things.
Yeah, we use their tortillas at the cabinet. They're really fabulous.
They're the best. Well, I personally really like Chef Cosme Aguilar cuisine. I mean, and this is something I always said, it's not just because I work with them in Casa Enrique and Quique, but because I think he's a genius. Like, he is keeping like a real thing on his food every time, like, and putting some innovation as well. And also what I admire probably the most is how his kitchens work. Like, it's always consistent and it's always the same experience. So yeah, I will say hi.
You know how hard that is, consistency with the kid. You can have one good cook, and when the cooks, it was always the same. What night is so and so working? It's the same for bartenders. Yeah. What night is so and so working? Oh, the other nights I'm not going.
Consistent. You learn quickly in restaurants that consistency is the that part, and that was something that was difficult at our restaurant. Our old chef, Denise, was fabulous, but she had a hard time, conveying her, that special something that she had to another chef. So you could see from day to day if somebody else made the mole or somebody else was cooking something, it was not the same. It was really hard.
If you really want to know, when you don't have a good kitchen team, I found myself having to dumb down the menu sometimes. And not that was bad, but if you're doing, you might just do quesadillas and leave it at that. But then you have to also, do I have good tortillas?
Yeah, our menu at the cabinet is dumbed down, but has great tortillas and really good simple Mexican cuisine. So it's hard to mess up sometimes.
So what's in our glass right now?
Oh, I'm so excited about this. So this
is this one of the 850 different selections that?
Yes, it is. This is so we, one of the special things about Mezcal is how small the batches can often be. And this here is a Tepextate. This is the latest batch that we've bought. Basically because of these small batch sizes.
7 bottles.
There's close, 73. It's a 55-liter batch. This actually took 1 ton of Tepextate agaves. Tepextate is famously one of the longer-growing agaves. These here are 15 to 18 years old.
What's different about them from... Tell us what the other agaves are.
So, Espadín is going to be really your most common that you're going to see for Mezcal. In a lot of cocktails, if you're drinking like Del Maguey Vida, or if you're drinking Lopez Real, Malbien, anything, is typically going to be made with Espadín. Espadín grows fast, it's sweet, it's herbaceous, it's easier to work with, it's, typically cultivated too. So, you see quite a bit of it. And a lot of people who start drinking Mezcal, unfortunately, are very quickly like, oh, I don't want to drink Espadín. But there's a reason that people work with Espadín a lot, because it makes really good Mezcal. If you can make a good Espadín, you can really make a lot of good Mezcal. So moving on from Espadín, especially in Oaxaca, you see a family of agaves called Karwinski that are typically not shaped like when you picture an agave, you're picturing like that round, the round agave with the rosette. These look more almost like yuccas, where they're kind of like barrel shaped maybe, or like more like a matchstick. So those have very different flavors. There's a lot, it's a family of agaves. There's a lot of different names for those: quiche, madre quiche, barril. There's lots of different local names as well. Then, Tepextate, Tobala is another famous one, like Del Maguey. they were Tobola lovers, and that was, they really kind of helped put that agave in the map.
What's the Tobola thing?
Tobola looks like much smaller, is almost like a maybe like cabbage size once it's trimmed. And especially in, where Julia's doing a lot of work in Puebla, you see a lot of Tobola. They call it Papilomedal. Or you see Tepextate too, which is under different names as well. But Tepextate kind of has this reputation of being like the longest, growing agave, typically wild. They're starting to cultivate this. I think Julia can also attest. A lot has changed in Mezcal and in agave spirits over the last, 5, 6, 7 years, in a decade too.
How many different plants are there in this Mexican spirits world that aren't corn, that are being made into spirits? Like, I know in wine, I'm going to just step out for a second.
Sure.
I started in wine 30 years ago, and 10 years ago, a guy had a thing called the Century Wine Club.
Yeah.
And you had to basically say, have I drinking wines from 100 different grapes? And I went through, in some regions they have blends, and others have single varietals. And I figured out that I had tasted over 100 different wine grapes in my life.
I don't know the exact number of different agave types that we carry. I know there's well over 100 that I've seen that are distilled, but it's not just agave. It's Sotol. In Oaxaca, you'll see it called Cucharillo. What's it's from the same Pinuela.
Pinuela is like a tropical fruit.
Yeah, in the same region. I think they distill some Pinuela too.
Yeah.
I've seen mesquite distilled. You see a little bit of everything there. But yeah, the Tepextate in particular, it's just like a wonderful flavor. Like, you get a lot of
we're as consumers, we're just learning this.
Yeah.
How do you sell not the cabinet, because I think that. Is this how you would talk to customers?
I teach quite a few. I'll teach 2 free classes a week, where one is like a Mezcal basics class and one's a tequila basics class. So I do a lot of talking to consumers at this basic level, where for me it's really fun to not be, and no shade to Julia, it's fun to not be part of a brand and be able to kind of talk I usually say I'm not unbiased, I'm very biased. But to be able to talk kind of more, be able to talk very openly about.
You can pick favorites. Yeah. Because you sell them all.
Exactly.
And then what about other experts? I know Vago and Ocho, there's Chris Simmons. You want to give a shout out to anybody else that you've worked with?
There's so many people. I think there's been a lot of work done. Arik, who you're friends with and who runs
Arik Torin, my colleague.
Yeah, he's been an amazing educator and been like a mentor of mine. A lot of people, in distribution in New York, like from, Justin Briggs from Skurnik, Nicholas Pilazzi, and Leo from PM Spirits. Then at the bars, like we were talking about Dre from Clavel, which is a James Beard nominated Mezcal bar in Baltimore, Max Reese in LA. There's quite a few people who are really, working really hard to, bring, kind of make this, I don't want to say accessible, because it's always going to be niche. But to really my thing is always I don't need you to walk away from my class saying, I love Mezcal. I want you to walk away from the class being like, this is the most special spirit that I can drink. It's so unique. There's so much more work that goes into it than so many other spirits that, that's really what I want to
Let's make it cheers.
Not everybody's going to like it. I want everybody to appreciate it.
I mean, again, for every sales guy I know says, listen, for every bottle of Mezcal I sell, I'll sell cases of tequila.
Yeah, right.
But that's still good. And then for you, Julia, what he's saying, how do you're interacting more with the accounts themselves or consumers, but how much do you talk about the variety of the plant that it starts with?
Oh my goodness, that's there now. You can use self.
Because again, I go back to the 70s in America, like Robert Mondavi. I mean, this is real geeky.
Yeah.
And Robert Mondavi was the first person to really proselytize California, which is American wine. Yeah. And he didn't have to talk about too many grapes.
Yeah.
It was like Cabernet and something else, Chardonnay. So how do you talk to people about it? Because I just learned about Sotol, from doing the event. I know Mezcal. I'm just figuring out what some of the plants are. but
it's
challenging.
It is very challenging. It's getting harder and harder the more I expand the portfolio because I have 17 different bottles. 14 of those are agave. And, I do have the espadín from Oaxaca, so that's always a starting point because that's sort of your classic mezcal flavor profile. It's what you would expect,
What
right?
did you pour for us just now?
This is the opposite of that. So this is one of our newer bottles from a brand called Rayo Seco. The owners of Rayo Seco are from Guerrero. But this particular expression is from the south of Puebla state. Brought it in part in honor of Mariana.
You like to pronounce Guerrero?
Well, it's the double R. I can't be in the mezcal word and say Guerrero. That would just be embarrassing. So, but this is from Puebla. It's from a really special part of Puebla on the Oaxacan border that's near a protected biosphere that has over like 15 varietals of cacti. So it's got a really particular terroir. This is called cacheton. That's the common name. Cacheton. This is getting really nerdy, but it's kind of considered like the jabalí.
You're not. No is nerdy.
It's okay. Good.
This is so good.
Okay.
I really like this.
It's
so
like
fruity. It's so nice.
Yeah, some consumers maybe have heard of jabalí. Jabalí literally translates to wild boar, but it's this varietal that is sort of harder to find, harder to harvest, harder to produce, essentially. But this is not Combalis. This is a scientific family called Otoroi. So we're getting niche on niche on niche.
Or how about this? Forget the niche. To say it's a specialty product.
Yeah.
And honestly, everyone that's listening to the show, we want to try the most interesting beer from the most interesting grain, the most interesting wine from the most interesting grape, and of course, I want to try the most interesting mezcal from the most interesting plant.
Right. This is a really cool one, and what I like about the actual flavor, and I wish people listening could actually taste it as we are, but. A lot of mezcal is kind of drying and dries your mouth out because of the alcohol content, but this one, for some reason, beyond having a delicious sort of tropical fruit flavor, for me, it has this like salivating
You think
effect.
it dries your mouth out?
Well, some mezcal, I think, can, but this is like juicy.
Yeah.
It's like a juicy
Capri
mezcal.
Sun and acetone.
Yeah, which is like...
What's the proof on it?
This is 48, I believe.
Drink so light.
Nope, it's 51.
I thought it was like, I remember it being higher.
Yes.
Because this is 52, and that's, I was like, I just remember this being a little over 50. It drinks so light though.
Better memory than I do. Yes, that is a common theme with the mezcals that Rayo Seco works with is they are very high proof and don't taste like it. So.
And I know one thing that you're good at, Julia, is networking. I'm sure there's different friends that have introduced you to different brands. What brands did Mariana introduce you to? Because I think you mentioned one of them.
So Seta Rayas was a connection that we had. So this is actually not mezcal. We have it here. It's a herbal liqueur from northern Puebla. And it's just a funny coincidence that Mariana had Seta Rayas in your restaurant in Puebla because it's been on the Mexican market for probably 10 years at this point.
Yeah, maybe.
And I brought it in a little over a year ago. So Mariana actually has more history with this brand than I do, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think Siete Rayas was sold in my restaurant for the first time. Like
when it was brand new.
2014.
What is Siete Rayas?
It's a very complex liqueur. It's one of the most... it's a gem. Like it has like how many
herbs? 13
herbs.
Citruses and herbs. It's essentially a rum-based herbal liqueur called Yolishpa. Yeah. Yolishpa translates to medicine of the heart. It's you could call it a Mexican Amaro, although it's a little bit sweeter than most Amaros. It's a pre-Hispanic liqueur that's really delicious.
Going back to traditional times.
Yeah, pre-Hispanic. It's an indigenous liqueur that's been made for centuries. Siete Rayas was the first Yolishpa to be commercialized and put on the market. The owner, Beto, is from this region, from near a city called Cuetzalan, where everything there is aguardiente based. So this is not agave land. This is a rum land. They call it vino, which is very confusing, but it's all essentially rum, and then they do flavored rums and aged rums and things like that.
Noah? Geek out with us, bro. Come on.
This is delicious. I'm really into it. I mean, we're kind of in also a golden age of Mexican rum right now. There's a lot of really beautiful rums coming to the U.S. Paranubes, Alambique Serrano, Cañada. It's really exciting. I'm at the point where I want to open a Mexican rum bar.
Danza de Lobos is literally was unloaded to my warehouse yesterday. So
Ooh, there you go. I haven't tried that yet.
We're gonna soon.
Let's stop calling niche because niche is like disparages the sales. It's called specialty. Because one of my bars 25 years ago, I remember
craft.
I started getting into really good rums. And at the time, there weren't that many, but we ended up having like 20 different ones in a regular bar, age and color and Venezuela and Caribbean nations. And, and diving into any of the spirits is quite an endeavor. I feel like I started when I was younger. I had wine and beer. And the spirits I always had, and I loved good spirits. But I always felt like for my liver, I couldn't become an expert. Maybe I don't have the brains that you do.
You're a big guy like me. I try a little of a lot.
Is it brains or liver?
I think it's liver. It's genetics. I try a little of a lot. I don't really drink that much in general. I just like to taste and really, dive in and experience. Yeah, it's very exciting to try so many great Mexican rums right now. What's the other one? Arica, Palicaña, Charanda Urapan. Mm-hmm. There's one more I'm missing. What was the big one?
Charanda Urapan.
There's Artornias, but
Palicaña from Jalisco. Yeah.
And now he's also bringing in the Maiz Nation.
The Maiz Nation. Yeah. There's just so much. People are really starting to see, the diversity and depth of just Mexican spirits in general. It's really
covers every category, right? So there's some really famous Mexican gins. I've seen Mexican vodka, eau de vie. I mean, there's really kind of everything coming out of Mexico at this point, which is...
I was looking at some figures recently, and Mexico and the U.S. are either the number one or number two trading partners of each other. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it is, and it should be. And we love Mexico. I think Canada is the other one. Yeah. And I just want to say that. Let's say it one more time. Mexico and U.S. are like the number one or number two trading partners with each other. Yeah. And I want to make a toast to that because it's great that we work together.
Salud. Definitely makes the United States better.
Yeah. And talk about spirits, Mexicans. So like drinks from Mexico. I think that the people that we know in the Bozo circle, in the better Mexican restaurants, expats, artists, people that have traveled, I think that you don't have to convince anyone of the quality of food and drinks from Mexico. What do you find challenging being in the States when it comes to Mexico? Not politics, but how do you is there certain dishes besides Pueblo food? Is there a certain dish that you would like people to know more about? How about that? Because I always think food first.
Oof. Well,
I want to know what should I know about that I don't know? Because I still by default dish is often I love pozole, but also often I just get quesadillas.
Well, there's a lot of things to know about Mexican food, and this is something I was talking about with a friend last night. Actually, when you are Mexican, it's hard to understand different cuisines. Like it's the opposite. Like maybe other palates or other cultures, they can eat everything about their country's food, but not us. It's so hard. It's one state has you as a Mexican, or if you're exploring Mexican food, you cannot finish it. Never. Mm-hmm. Like even I mean, for moles, you cannot. You won't stop. Like, and then it's not only by regions, but also by families. So if you go to Puebla, and that's it. If you go to Puebla, every family will have a different recipe and a different secret, and so very well kept secrets. So.
I have a question for Mariana, which is, in Mexico, in terms of spirits and agave spirits, I've found that they mostly consume what is regionally produced, right? So in Oaxaca, you're drinking Oaxacan mezcals. Yeah. In Chihuahua, you're drinking Chihuahua sotols mostly, et cetera, et cetera. And so do you find it's the same with food? So that in Puebla, you're mostly eating locally, local recipes, locally grown ingredients, or is it easy to access sort of recipes from all over Mexico, wherever you are?
I think there's 3 different regions where people from the center part of the country can access or know about the northern part food, right? La comida del norte, the meat in the north is very popular, and then also have access to the southern part of the country food. But
and then if we go as tourists to the coast, we think of seafood and limes and things.
Yeah. But I think we are pretty conscious. The whole country is very conscious of what's happening on each region, like in general. Yes, I could say yes. And we are getting very conscious about our power on the kitchen. So yeah.
I'm going to give a shout out to one of my favorite chefs who has done bolas all, Yara Herrera.
Yara, yeah.
I say Herrera?
Yara Herrera.
Yeah, and she was part of the Hellbender. If you were out here in Bushwick, go to Ridgewood, Hellbender. I was there the opening night, and it was a tight little bar menu, but it was like the fried chicken sandwich, ceviche, some other things, and I was just like, she nailed it.
And they've expanded their menu, so you should go back.
Yeah, I love her. And tonight we might also go down the street to Sobremasa, because I know in the spring he had a new menu and we haven't tried that yet. But okay, Zach, for you.
Noah.
Man,
Zach is still ready. We'll see Zach later.
That was the last show. That was the last show we drank Mezcal on. That's what happens when I drink Mezcal. But Noah, who I've known for years. For you, whether it's the cabinet or in your own little personal, life, I want to take my listeners on a tasting party. I like parties like Bowls, but tasting party, you got two chefs. What would they make and what would you drink?
Sure.
See, I know you think about these things.
Yeah, I do. I really do. Like, I love, I think Mezcal in particular pairs very well with food. I think always I like to start with like mariscos, so like an aguachile, a ceviche, that pairs very well with a lot of mezcals. You can pair it, very differently. You can pair it with something like very kind of those classic Oaxacan mezcal flavors, where it's for me, it's a lot of those like stewed fruits and very tropical flavors. And you still get that from the Rayo Seco that we're trying right now. That goes really nicely with a ceviche or an aguachile. I also really like the mezcals from the north, like San Luis Potosi in particular. Like, those are mezcals that are great to pour for people who have not really had a lot of experience with mezcal. Like, that is almost, something from that state is almost.
How are they different?
So they're typically made from an agave called Salmiana, and most of the time the agaves have a lot of flavor, but I think most of the time the production process controls over the agave itself. So a lot of time you're getting like production, like, how they cook the agave, how they ferment, how they distill is going to control typically over the flavor of the agave, unless it's certain types of agaves. So this Tepextate that we poured here, usually expresses itself very well. In the north, in San Luis Potosi, they use an agave called Salmiana a lot. And that agave is like so green and so bright. You get like serrano pepper seed off of it. And typically those mezcals are maybe a little either nice. You guys did some good sound. I think you're going to crack this glasses. Those mezcals typically will have like less of that roasty, smoky flavor and more just like vegetal forward. They just pair so well with food.
That's a little party, mariscos and
exactly.
Julia just poured. Sorry, you just poured this very
you're about to
spirit.
This is about to mix it up. So this is fun. I'll pair this mezcal with fruit. I'll let her talk about it.
Yeah, this is also an honor. This is an honor of Noah joining me on a trip to Mexico in just a couple weeks to Nuevo León. This is a brand called Pecho Tierra. It is based in Nuevo León and Monterrey, which is northeastern Mexico, not terribly far from the Texas border. The reason why this has such a particular flavor is because it is fermented not with water but with pulque, which is sort of like a Mexican, very nice, kombucha, agave-derived kombucha like salud beverage, and they do that for the producer does this for two reasons. It's at altitude, it's cold year-round at night, and so the pulque, being a fermented beverage, helps accelerate the fermentation process. And also the agaves they have available to them here are more fibrous and less sugary,
fruity fermented nose.
So it helps them with their yield right? So it's a dual. And then the third actually is that it's just the tradition in town. Some producers can't even tell you why, but it's just how we do it here.
So how did you? Okay, you're an importer.
Yeah.
Talking about tasting parties right now. How did you find this brand? Well, first of all, Rayo Seco, that's my go-to. When I go to Bowls, I will often seek that out and keep drinking that.
Amazing.
It fits my palate.
You have very good taste.
I'm with the right people.
Sophisticated palate. Rayo Seco, they were friends of mine from me just buying their bottles in a little store in Mexico City called Mis Mezcales. They were the only bottles from Guerrero in the store, and I thought, everything I see is from Oaxaca. This is interesting. I started buying it every time I was there and ended up using it in tasting events I was hosting out of my apartment pre-pandemic. They became friends of mine IRL, and then we decided to in real life. Yes,
in real life. That was a subway line. IRL.
Jimmy's eyes glazed over.
In real life.
Millennial.
Millennial.
And so that was a very sort of like natural connection because we were friends, and actually they were my connection to Pecho Tierra. So they said, hey, we have this friend. He has a brand called Pecho Tierra. He lives in Mexico City, but his partner lives in Monterrey, where it's made nearby, and it's really special stuff. And they want to talk to you. And I tried it, and I thought, well, this is unusual. That was that connection. So Noah and I are heading there in a few weeks because they're celebrating 5 years as a brand. And we're going to do a big party in the town where it's produced. And
does he make the pulque himself, or is he buying it from someone?
No. So good question. The pulqueros, who are the pulque producers, are located in a town 3 hours away from where this is produced.
Okay, so we're going to take a short break.
All right.
Because we'll be back in a few minutes on Beer Sessions Radio.
Today's program is brought to you by Korin, a supplier of Japanese chef knives and restaurant supplies. Korin is proud of their Japanese culture and traditions, but they want you to know that their products are not just for Japanese restaurants. Their knives and tableware bring out the best qualities of food from every culture and fit into every restaurant from French to Pan-Asian to American. And that is why they're located in New York City, where people from every country in the world come to eat. Korin's Tribeca showroom is home to the most extensive collection of Japanese chef knives in the world, including Japan. Stop by to view their exquisitely designed tableware and the rarest natural sharpening stones. They have a whole range of knife services from repair and rust removal to reshaping and realigning. Korin is dedicated to this ideal, bringing the highest quality Japanese design to your table so you can experience the unparalleled quality of Japanese craftsmanship in your home or restaurant. For more information, visit Korin.com.
Hey, welcome back to Beer Sessions Radio on Heritage Radio Network. Hey guys, it's our 15th year. HeritageRadioNetwork.org. Support us, become a member. I'm so proud to be one of the longest serving hosts, over 700 episodes and 15 years on Heritage Radio Network. Thanks for your support. So guys, we're talking about Mexico and New York City, mezcal, food and everything else. So this Pecho Tierra, this is Julia from... Why don't you guys say your names one more time?
Right.
Go through.
Julia Cuthbertson from Las Chingonas Imports.
I am Mariana Pelaez from... Mariana Pelaez as a food photographer, Mexican food photographer.
Noe Ernstine from the Cabinet Mezcal Bar.
Yeah, so we're just talking about this Pecho Tierra. It's a pulque-based... So it's like ripe and fruity, but it's a spirit. But what is pulque? Because I last year at Bolozola, someone said, someone was serving a pulque. But everyone's like, why isn't there a pulque on the market that we could get?
Yeah, that is not
what is pulque?
Really possible because pulque is an agave-derived fermented beverage. You could compare it to a kombucha or sort of a beer, lightly alcoholic. It is. There's certain agave varietals where if you chop off the pencas, like the leaves, and you cut a hole in the heart and you scrape the inside, a sort of sugary substance will come to the surface, and if you extract that, it will start to naturally ferment, and that becomes pulque basically on day 2.
So where would you drink that? Only on the farm?
There are pulque producing states that are really famous for pulque. Hidalgo, right, would be one of the more famous. Estado de México. What are the other
Puebla, La Sierra también. Yeah, so yes, mainly even the kids drink pulque. It's not a very high alcoholic drink.
When I think of beer, I think of pulque. It's like the first fermentation.
Right.
Kind of.
Yeah. It's
But
very lightly fermented.
Does it happen natural? Is it natural fermentation?
Ferments very quickly too. Famously.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever sell that in your restaurants?
Yes, but it's not easy. It has a very short life.
It must be
Do you have to
consumed
make it
fresh.
yourself?
No, not me.
Yeah, you buy it. So they're
buy
just
it.
like they're mezcaleros, they're pulqueros. So they're people who dedicate themselves to pulque. So you buy it from the pulquero. It'll keep fermenting, of course, right? So you might buy it, or it's on day 2, and it's very lightly fermented. But by day 8, it is a different story. And at a certain point, you don't want to drink
does
it.
it stink?
You want to throw it away. Yeah, it can be quite strong.
It gets like that
Yeah.
spitty kind of texture.
Little
if you know.
little viscous.
If someone were to
yeah.
make it like the way we think in the States commercially, it would have to be like pasteurized.
They do, yeah.
and-
So they're. I wonder if that brand. I assume it still exists. It was called like 1881 or 1882. It was a pasteurized canned pulque and not particularly good.
Yeah.
It's just not the same.
Because you have to put in
Yeah.
these stabilizers
Right.
to stop the
Yeah.
fermentation. So you
So
really
in
have to
our
drink
country,
it
like
fresh.
Northeast, would be like if I had a cider mill and an apple orchard, we had fresh pressed cider. After a couple of days, it starts to turn.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
if you want to try like a fresh pulque, you have to go to either a mercado, like a market, even in Mexico City, you can find like pulquerias or a proper pulqueria. So,
Yeah.
And you'll see them flavored as well, like all
Wow.
different food.
But it's got to be
all different
sourced to
fruits, yeah.
fresh. So that's something we got to go
Yes.
try. Okay, last thing, dumb question. Sometimes we get inquiries about, someone in Texas is trying to make a mezcal tequila. Do you think that in America that people could grow agave and make a quality mezcal or tequila? Or what's the answer to that besides that tradition and the time it takes to grow the plants and who wants to tackle that one?
So I've tried a handful. So anything that's coming from outside of Mexico, you're going to call can't be called a mezcal or tequila. You're going to call it like agave spirit distilled from agave. I've got one from Hawaii in my bar right now. That's not bad.
Also South Africa.
Yeah, South Africa,
India,
China. The South African one is maybe one of the worst things I've ever drank.
Australia. Have you tried that?
I have not tried that one. I tried the Ninth Rabbit one is the one that's really bad.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not getting a plug from me here. But you see then too, like Chawar from, is that Ecuador?
Ecuador,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
Ecuador.
not for me, but interesting. I think you certainly can, whether like there's a market for that, so divorced from like the, so much of what you're selling.
I crossed the border in Arizona or Texas, and I knew what I was doing, and I wanted to spend 25 years on this. Could I grow some agave, and maybe someone could use that?
Absolutely, but it's like to what point? So much of this
is already there.
Is so intertwined with the culture that like when you divorce it from that, it's like, what do you have? For me, it's like that. That was one of the things that interested me in the first place. If it's, you could make a good agave spirit, in California maybe, but why bother? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be priced the same, if not more, than something of equal.
Here in New York, I'm really interested in the Northeast rye whiskeys, or I want a New England cider from Heritage Apples,
Yeah.
Julie, for you, so okay, now I've stirred you back. So if we really want to try the good agave spirits, we need to go to Mexico. So you guys, who's going to Mexico in a couple weeks, and where are you going?
Yes, great question.
And who are you going to see? Because
amazing.
This guy is so. The whole story was tonight was like, oh, you got to meet Noah from the cabinet. Now I know you for 10 years, but Noah is going with Julia to Mexico.
Yeah, he is. So I'm starting off the trip in Puebla, in Mariana's home state, in the Sierra Norte, where this spirit, this Yulishpa.
Sometimes I feel like I'm in a John Wayne movie when I hang out with you.
Cool.
That's a dumb American thing.
Great.
Sierra Norte.
Sounds like fun.
Sierra Norte.
Yeah, and that's
one
where,
cowboy, one horse, 10 bottles of mezcal.
En la Sierra Norte.
In the Sierra Norte, and
La
it's,
Sierra
and
Norte.
it's 10 bottles of Yolishpa, or aguardiente. Or vino, as I call it there. So, starting off. Yeah.
I had an Italian grandfather, Bino. We had Bino.
All right, look at that.
You never knew what it was, but
You're
it was
coming
Bino.
on the next trip.
I'm coming.
So we're going to do 4 days in Puebla and then do a little break in Mexico City. But then Noah's going to join me for The portion that's in Nuevo León, that is where
Where's that?
Tierra is produced. So northeastern Mexico. We will be in Monterrey.
But Northeast, and so is that next? Is it bordering the states or just
adjacent to Texas?
Yeah,
yes.
it shares a very small border with Texas.
Texas. Texas.
Yes, it's actually this region is like a lot of gringos actually cross the border because it's sort of a like outdoor adventure mecca, and so you see a lot of people rock climbing. There's like whitewater rafting.
It's like a bad movie where they're in an RV and they want to go to Mexico.
There's a very tall bungee jump center that every time I go by, I think someday I'm going to have enough mezcal to actually do this on the way back home. But it hasn't happened yet. But we're going to go to a place called Laguna de Sanchez where Don Jorge makes this really exceptional spirit. We're going to celebrate their 5 years as a brand with a lot of their local and US-based clients.
This last one you poured for me, tell me what it is again, because the more I drink it, the more I like it.
Right.
Which is always a test.
Yeah.
You know, in the old days of having a beer bar, I'd be like, okay, you're a new brewery, we'll try your beer.
Yeah.
Will the customers drink more than one glass? Well, this one, whatever it is, tell us again, because I'm going to drink more than one glass.
Oh, love it. The brand is called Pecho Tierra. The agave is commonly called cenizo, but it is scientifically called scabra, and it is fermented with pulque.
I'm drinking more than one glass.
Yes, love it. Yeah, really small batch, really special stuff. So hopefully more of you out there can try it soon.
This is definitely one of the most unique agave spirits that you can try.
Yeah.
So on this trip, Noah, that you're going to take, where are you most looking forward to going?
So I mean, I'm so excited. So I'm going to go. I'm going to join Julia in Monterrey, and then after that, I'm going to be going to San Luis Potosi to witness some ancestral mezcal production there. The brand is called Campanilla, and they do clay pot mezcal. But they do clay pot mezcal in a way that I've never seen anywhere else, and really just some of the most fabulous stuff I've tried in the last few years too. So I'm really excited for both of these two.
Clay pot.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing I'm going to say, because I have a chef friend in Astoria. He's from Thailand, and he's into clay pot barbecue. When you think about when you go to Chinatown, New York City, and you see the roasted meats hanging in the window, it's kind of like a tandoor oven, where it's like a circular oven. But the chef I know, I'm going to give a shout out to Chef Oak at Kamrai Thai in Astoria. Sometimes when he's in Thailand, he actually makes the clay pots, and there's a heating element in it, and they hang the meats along the wall, kind of like what they do in Chinatown. And it's pretty amazing. So when you say clay pot now,
yeah, that's cool.
I'm thinking it sounds good because I love the pork that he makes.
No, you get this. I mean, it's very like, it's not subtle. You get clay flavor in these clay pot mezcals. You get that minerality. You get that almost, that drying effect that Julia talks about. Almost like, I always say licking a wet river stone, which like nobody does, but everybody kind of knows what that feeling is.
A little minerally.
Yeah, you really comes through.
Yeah, because we think, if you may know about, I always go back to wine because I feel like everyone knows about wine. Wine, there's oak, and you have bourbon, there's charred oak. So those are flavors that are imparted to the spirit. But to have clay is completely different.
Yeah, it's really wild.
Stainless steel, right?
Yeah.
And
these are ways you really...
You get wood too is really common as well.
Well, Julia, do you... Okay, I know some importers who direct the traditional makers of everything from wine to spirits on how to fashion it for the American market. Are you doing that? Are you trying to capture the authentic? But it's also what is the authentic? Because if someone's starting to say this American market wants, stainless steel or clay pot aging.
The short answer is hell no. I don't have any part in the final product. The cool thing about what Rayo Seco in particular, and also Pecho Tierra, does is they want to bottle and consume what the producers themselves drink at home. And so they say, we're not going to proof this down to any, to the desires of any one market, right? Like some people think that we can't handle high proof spirits, and so we're going to proof it down. They say, whatever you drink at home, that's the good stuff. We're going to bottle that. And that's exactly what they do. They all tend to be between, lowest level 48% ABV and up to 53 in my portfolio. But that's where the producer thinks is the sweet spot that brings out the best notes of the agave.
Well, now also with other spirits, what are they talking about? They're talking about some kind of, is it barrel proof?
Yeah,
I don't know
it gets a little intense.
I mean, now it's very spirits are really challenging, and I respect you guys for doing it because I know how much.
But mezcal is really special because it drinks so easily at proof. Like the 52% stuff that we're drinking, the low 50s is like easy to drink neat, whereas like whiskey at 52%, you probably want to add some ice or a drop of water or something too.
Last thing, cocktails versus neat. I'm a fan. My whole career since I started over 30 years ago. When I drink spirits, I like a spirit neat. I like a really good spirit, and I like it neat. And I like it with other things. But I'm not really a cocktail guy. I mean, sometimes I've been to some really good places and I like the cocktail. But I'm not going to regularly drink cocktails. How do you guys feel about a really fine neat spirit versus a cocktail? What would you seek out? You can tell me the truth, Julia.
Complicated. Well, listen, I often...
You sell the cocktails, but
yes.
What do you drink?
Well, I prefer neat because it means I can drink more sometimes. And I don't feel quite as bad the next day.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mariana, you.
Awesome.
Well, I love it neat as well, like to understand like what am I drinking, But then when I feel like to have something else, I do it. Like,
what's a favorite cocktail you've had recently?
Wait. There's this one which the name is Lupes what? In Covacha, in Upper West Side. Lupes Tonic. Oof. Buenísimo. Incredible.
So
like
is it?
It's
Mezcal and tonic,
it's infused with Palo Santo.
Wow.
Yes. And it's a clarified cocktail made with mezcal, and I don't know which mezcal. I think probably Yola. Probably Yola. It was
a play on gin and tonic.
Made by Felipe.
Which is amazing how hot gin and tonics are.
Buenísimo. You have to go try it. Lupes Tonic.
Mr. Cabinet.
I mean, I love selling cocktails. I mostly drink neat. If I was going to drink a mezcal cocktail, for me, the Naked and Famous is the best mezcal cocktail there is.
The Naked Famous?
Yes.
Tell us what that is. Is that at your bar?
We can serve one at our bar.
What is it?
Joaquin Simo invented it in the East Village maybe 15 years ago.
Which establishment?
Where was it invented? Death & Co?
Probably.
That sounds right. Mezcal, Aperol, lime, yellow chartreuse. Beautiful.
Neat up.
Shaken and up. Yeah.
Sounds really good.
Yeah, really
Guys,
nice.
great little show. Thanks so much for joining me. Last thing, is there one question sitting out there that you're dying to ask of someone else? Because there's only one question. Julia.
Oh, God. I have
your
to
friends
go
here.
first. Oh, who am I asking?
You might be the only,
to?
whoever you want. This might be the only chance you get to ask a question.
Oh, my goodness. Mariana, what's the thing you missed most about Mexico that you can't get here?
Good question.
Real tortillas, always. And also barbacoa de hoyo.
What's barbacoa de hoyo?
Okay. So barbacoa de hoyo, it's a lamb made underground. Like they used to do it in my grandfather's town, right next to Teotihuacan pyramid. So you cannot find it here because there's no chance. I mean, I don't think that's legal here. So whenever you
work on that.
Yeah,
Because
a lot
guess
of,
what? I love lamb too. And you got a question?
Yeah.
Zach?
What's next for you? You're bringing in
Oh,
rum?
good
What's going on?
question. Yeah. I'm about literally yesterday, Danza de Lobos, which is in 3 years aged in glass, ancestrally produced rum from Michoacan by the mezcal maker Emilio Vieira from
yeah, I knew
Mateo.
that, yes.
So that is arriving, and then I have 2 very small batch, 1 clay pot distilled Oaxacan mezcals arriving first half of 2025.
Where in Oaxaca?
So I swear to you guys, listeners, in between each sip of mezcal, I'm drinking some of the Roberta's lager. And what I love is I come here, I know that's a great beer on draft.
Yeah.
That's all I know right now. I'm going to go drink more mezcal and have some pizza at Roberta's and the full menu. And there's a couple of restaurants that Roberta's has. Foul Witch, one of my favorite restaurants. It's every great item from the menu here at Roberta's that's not pizza. Foul Witch in the East Village.
After Foul Witch, come to the cabinet.
And I'm dying to go to One Pen. One Pen. Have you been to One Pen?
Not yet, but they're
The
a client of
Roberta's
mine.
on One Pen, yeah. and the cabinet. So great places. Thanks so much for joining me, Noah, Mariana,
Julia.
And I'm Jimmy Carboni. Thanks for joining me on Heritage Radio Network.
Thank you, Jimmy.
I've got a great buzz. Thanks so much, Gabe, for joining everything. Engineer. Heritage Radio Network. We'll catch you next time. Woo! Thanks so much, guys.
Thank
Woo!
you. Salud.
All right.
Salud.
I like Mezcal. Beer Sessions Radio is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.